Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, but maybe the public comment period, maybe that's healthy. But I've been friends with Bob for a long time, and I appreciate Bob and everything that he does. But he kind of got the juices flowing in my mind here. The reality to some of the comments is, I think you got to be very careful here, and I think we need to really have a little bit of a better do a little bit of evaluation on where everything's at these days. Following your train of thought, some of the decisions that I've made, and I've made it very clear where I was at on things, I got beat up pretty good by the sportsmen. So when I hear, you need to represent us, Tom, you made the same comment, you need to represent us. Well, the irony is that when I represent the people that I'm here, the conservation rep, the question came to me, why? And the irony is that the sportsmen do the same thing, and they get hammered. The answer is because we're doing what we believe to be the right thing. Why would the expectation of sportsmen be, or anybody else, that I'm going to do anything than what the conservation says using that logic? I'm just going to vote with conservation every time? If that's the thought process, the makeup of the commission and the county advisory boards can change at any time through the legislature, and I think you got to be careful with how you look at things. Okay, and I think it's a bad way. It's a bad way to proceed, because using that logic, you might have a different makeup of these systems at some point in the future, and you're going to be hypocritical when things don't go your way because the makeup is different and people are following those thought processes. I wish that there was a level of respect. The irony too is that I don't think I made the conservation community completely happy. Okay, they thought that I voted a little not conservative enough, and that maybe I was in the back pockets of the sportsmen. I get that a lot. So it's not easy, and Commissioner Lane, you do have a tough road ahead of you, and I know you're ready for it, but it is a very thankless job in a lot of ways. In some respects, it's very rewarding in others. But we're changing in Nevada. Things have changed, and I think we got to embrace that change in some fashion. I don't know to what extent. I think everybody has to decide that for themselves. But our roles and responsibilities, not just as commissioners and CAB members, but as people coming to the table, we need to figure out how we can all get along and how we can get some stuff done. And I hate the word compromise. I hate the words give and take. I think for me, it's more a function of doing the right thing. I receive input. I try to process it. I try not to bog down into the business of the department at the inappropriate levels. All we're asking for is good, solid, appropriate input. Maybe just a little bit of respect for the decisions that we make. Just out of respect for somebody's going to lose and somebody's going to win. It's just the way the system works. It's unfortunate that people will perceive it that way, but there'll be people in this room tomorrow that perceive that they've lost, and there'll be people that perceive that they've won. This commission is going to come out getting hammered one way or the other. It's a no-win, but decisions that have to be made, and I wish that we could start climbing over some of these hoops with that stuff just a little bit.
I guess.
Commissioner Rain.
Thank you. It's probably best summarized, and I brought me back as some correspondence I'd forgotten about earlier, and that was an email sent to Mr. Louise, I believe, and it stated in there that, why is NDOW and the department always asking for input, and when they get it, they don't like it, they just ignore it, called unignorable evidence, and they claim, and this was a quote out of the Winter Gazette Journal, was that these people are just self-proclaimed wildlife experts who don't understand wildlife science. That was a quote from our director, a recent addition to that, and a little upset about why nobody's listening. And that's just seemed like a good example. That's kind of part of the issue. Sitting here looking at it, and hey, well, what's your input? But I don't like it, so you're just not going to get over it. And that's a definite perception, and it may or may not be the reality. So we need to deal with that in our responsibilities. Thank you.
Commissioner Drew.
The only other comment I would make is, I think some people think that we have a tally sheet up here and we keep score of who's providing comments, and we don't. I mean, if it was that easy, we don't need to be here. We'll put it in a ballot box and let everyone vote and see how it shakes out. So we're constantly weighting the input we get, the different perspectives, and it's one hell of a challenge. And so when I hear someone say, be a follower and not a leader, you can't do this job and not be a leader. And if you don't like the job I'm doing as a sportsman or as your representative, give me a call. Don't write a letter and circulate it. Call me. I've got one person who calls me on a regular basis and provides input. That's not healthy. My phone's posted on the internet. My email's posted on the internet. Talk to me directly. We're just people trying to do the best thing we can. But we are leaders. We take a lot of heat for what we do, and that's part of the job. I have no problem with it. If you've got an issue, get a hold of me directly, and we'll talk it out.
Anybody else? Commissioner Macbeth.
I didn't really want to do this, but this, we've continued now on a regular basis for the last couple meetings to get these comments with regard to the vote. Let's just get right down to it. What we're talking about is a vote on trapping. And when you come and make a statement that
I hate to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, but I would really counsel against talking about a specific issue in the past and keep it to the agenda item, which is the duties of the board.
okay, then I have to withdraw because I can't get my point across without going through it. Thanks.
All right. Anybody else? The only closing comment I have to this is I am a sport. Joe, go ahead, and then I'll close.
Now, if I could just interject, Mr. Chairman, for one minute.
Sure.
We need to make sure under the open meeting law, the public personal attacks are not allowed. So we need to keep the sparring within the limits of propriety.
Okay. I don't intend to spar. I really wasn't going to speak. I want to make one point in public. There is an inference that's been going around that the anti-hunters get to claim the general public. I don't believe that is true. I interact with a lot of the general public, and I would say that there are far more people that find what I do to be interesting rather than be opposed to it. I do not think the general public is anti-hunting, anti-trapping. I think they have their own things that they do. They coach soccer, they golf, they do other things. I don't think that the general public can be claimed by the anti-hunters. I'm clear on agriculture and sportsman responsibilities. Dave, I'm not clear on who you represent. I think that I'm a conservationist, and I'm very much in the conservationist community.
I would agree.
And the Trappers Association has donated money for river otters, bobcats, get fox, right on down the line. So, I don't think the animal rights people can claim you either.
I would agree.
And I can get up and say this, and that's really all I've got to say. Thank you.
And I likewise think that it's not reasonable for anybody to expect me to vote a certain way.
Mr. Reed?
Mike Gleason, representing myself. The only thing I can say to summarize this, let's remember who brought us to the dance. The wildlife that are in the state of Nevada, not all of them were here from way back when. A lot of them have been brought in. We just heard you talk about us giving sheep to Utah. Other states have helped bring us in, turkeys and stuff. Remember who is behind that. A lot of the sportsmen that put the money, their hard-earned sweat, dollars, boots on the ground. Fraternity Desert Bighorns put 780,000 gallons of water on the mountain. Let's not forget that. I I think that every sporting organization in Nevada would welcome public to come out, put the gloves on, put the boots on, come on out and help. Don't just sit up and criticize. So with that being said, as you guys move forward and you listen to all the testimonies, not just today, but in the future, remember who brought us to the dance. Thank you.
Commissioner Morrow, you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question of Mr. Stockton. We're discussing the roles and responsibilities of the Commission, Department, County Advisory Boards. Okay, the question that I have is this considered a system that we're supposed to operate by?
Well, I'm not sure you mean by system, but yes, you need to operate within the statutory framework.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Maybe that was the wrong wording. I'll give you an example. The way I see it on these roles and responsibilities, the roles and responsibilities of the County Advisory Board are to collect local input, to give us a broad spectrum view of what's going on in the state. Bring that input, and it's their responsibility. We've heard earlier today about providing the facilities so that input, the public has the opportunity to provide that input. Then when they come to the commission, that process has, maybe it's not been completed, but that process has been followed. Is that correct? And then we're supposed to evaluate the product of that process. Am I wrong, or?
I think the part of your question is answered. I have the statute, the duties of the county boards. It says the board shall solicit and evaluate local opinion and advise the commission on matters relating to the management of wildlife within their respective counties. And so it's, yeah, their job is to take that input, they consider it. Generally what happens is they come to a consensus on what their opinion is one way or the other. They bring that and advise the board as to their, as to what the outcome of that evaluation of local opinion is. So does that kind of answer your question? That's the system. I'm not sure anyone's really suggesting that the county board should control this board, which would be incorrect. But so does that answer your question?
Yes.
Or are we close?
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
So going forward, you really should keep public comment to a discrete section of the item. So.
Okay.
I'll fill out a card here after I speak. Chris Schwamberger, speaking for myself. I wasn't going to say anything either, Joel, but I do appreciate the chairman putting, if indeed it was Chairman Rod that put this on the agenda, and I really appreciate Mr. Stockton's input. Just like to respond to a couple things that I think this commission is starting to get. I do appreciate and notice the efforts of the commission to take into account, shall we say, a broader spectrum of opinion on wildlife issues. One thing I'd like to take the opportunity to point out is that the cabs are required by statute to be sportsmen. The point I'd like to make is, and I think the commission gets this, that the general public does not have fair representation in these decisions. And I think this commission knows that. The cabs are required to be sportsmen, and during a lot of testimony, they did not at least, they can vote and make their opinions known, but they did not pass on to this commission the public comment that they were getting. They only listened to the hunters, and that's what you're hearing. Now, I think this commission is starting to try to change that, but that's one thing I want to point out, that we are not fairly represented in this advisory, CAB advisory process. As you're also well aware, the sportsmen have the overwhelming majority of votes on this commission. And we have only obtained a fair representation of the general public on this commission, and we have great hopes for that. The other point I wanted to make was, I forget what it was, but, time and time again, this commission gets comments that it's the sportsmen that are carrying the water, it's the sportsmen that are transplanting the bighorn sheep. That's not true. There are organizations that function outside of the Department of Wildlife, once again, because we do not have fair representation. There's the Defenders of Wildlife, there's the Friends of Nevada Wilderness, there's the Sierra Club. There are other private organizations that do a lot of work for wildlife, but they do not work through this department because we are not represented. And I just want to make that point. I do notice that this commission is trying to make an effort. We will see what happens. It's appreciated, it's noticed, and I just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Gil.
For the record, Gil Yannick, Carson Advisory Board. I think the one thing that we're missing that makes it the job of the county advisory boards a little more difficult is the number of members of the public who attend the local advisory board meetings. There are times when we have 2. There are times when we have 8. There are times when we have none from the public at the meetings. And when you meet to discuss items that will be on the agenda here at the commission, and it's great to have the interaction of the public to know what they're thinking. Now, most of the members on our CAB, and I'm sure it's similar throughout the state, they're part of that community, and they talk to a lot of people. Some of them are sportsmen, some of them hunters, fishermen, trappers, whatever. So they kind of get a lot of that input vicariously without those people actually attending the meeting. And it's similar to what you commissioners have to do when you get members from the public, you hear comments from the cabs, you have to kind of sift through all that to come to a decision. And yes, I think sportsmen have an obligation to sportsmen, conservationists have an obligation to consider the conservation side of these things, maybe more than the sportsman does. But in the whole scheme of things, you know, you do the same things that we CAB members do. When we make our recommendation, our action report that, on the issues that we vote on at our meeting, we're doing the same thing on a lower level, because we don't see the input from the entire state, we see it from our county. So what I'm trying to get to is that we can only provide information that we get from our constituents, really. And if we don't have them, then we, the CAB members, have to make a decision based on our experience, our knowledge of our community, and our experience listening to the people, whether they come to our meeting or we've ran into them at the market, or we got an email or a phone call. So it's the sum total of all the information that we have to sift through, just like you have to sift through. And, you know, it's an obligation that you have as commissioners, same as we have on a lower level as CAB members. And we try to do the best thing. Do we represent everybody? We represent everybody who we're aware of. And yes, the complexion of the people that come to our meetings is changing. And it's good. I welcome the comments from people who are not hunters, not fishermen, and people have concern about bears or mountain lions or raccoons or whatever, because if they don't say that things to us, we don't know, because our field of view is somewhat limited. it's a challenge that we all have, and I think the public is represented as equally and as best as we can with the information that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. John, Karen.
I got also one or two questions for Mr. Stockton. In our responsibilities as a commissioner appointed from Clark County, do we represent our county first or our county advisory board as a sportsman, or are we supposed to look at our responsibility equally in the sportsmen throughout the state? Or is our first responsibility the cap that we represent our home county?
Your first responsibility is to the wildlife and to the people of the state.
To the sportsmen
you
throughout the
have
state?
you do take
people
that.
are sportsmen.
What? I think all.
All people.
Now, obviously you do that within the context of what you're doing here, but yeah, you represent all the people of the state. So, but being a representative from Clark County, then you should take that into account as well, as you should take all the information you get into account to make but the bottom line is you make the best decision that for those two areas of responsibility, wildlife and people of the state.
Thank you.
Karen.
Karen Boger, just speaking for myself. Sorry, Suzanne, I'll hand in a card. I really appreciate this discussion. I think it's good that you're taking time to do this, and hopefully we won't have to take much time in the future on these sorts of discussions. But one thing that occurs to me is that, yes, you each represent different entities of us, the public, but the one thing that really binds you together is that you're trying to represent something that doesn't have a voice, and that's the wildlife and wildlife habitat. And the other thing is that because of that, your decisions, more often than not, can and should be based on science. And so what you do is not necessarily a democratic process. It's not something that we can take a vote on and see, what does the majority of the public want you to do. And that's a hard place to be in. But I appreciate that you really take that into account and hopefully primarily base your decisions when necessary on the science. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody? Okay. The only thing I have to say in closing is I am a sportsman representative, and I'm nothing more or less than that. I had a great weekend with great 10 days with 2 boys in the field, and nothing made me happier than that. And I hope to do that with my grandkids, and that's what's important to me. So I may represent the sportsman in a different way than you see sometimes, but I truly believe I am representing sportsmen, without a doubt. So that's all I got. 10 after 12. Let's take a break.